FBA fees climbing, I'm losing my grip. Storage costs rising, they'll never let me skip. Refunds I'm eating, returns pile up too. Oh, Amazon, what else will you do? I look at my dashboard, my profits erased. My margins are gone, it's a slap in the face. Prime Day's a promise, but it's such a race. How much will I make if I'm replaced? It's a cruel, cruel number. Fees keep climbing, profits torn asunder. Oh, it's cruel. The sellers wonder how to survive when the margins go under. It's a cruel, cruel number. Every month it's something new to plunder. Oh, it's cruel. It's no wonder we're stuck in this game. The algorithm's thunder.
Yo, Amazon's back, and they got a new scheme. Reimbursement slashed, it's every seller's dream. They're digging deep, taking more from the pot. Let's break it all down, expose what they got. March 25, it's a policy drop. They say manufacturing costs, but we know it's a flop. Give us your cogs, they're demanding the price. But if you don't, they'll estimate nice. Nice for them, not for you. Watch a payout shrink. That comprehensive evil is a corporate wink. Lost in the warehouse, damaged on the floor. Now they pay you pennies, not a cent more. Fees on the rise, profits on the run. They don't lift a finger, but they pocket the fun. We're fair! They shout while they cut our shares. Amazon math, man, it's full of errors. Fees, taking our dough. They're stacking the deck, and it's sellers who owe. Reimbursement? Nah, they're taking us down, but we're still here, we don't mess around. Fees, straight to the top. Amazon's game, it'll never stop. Margins tight, but we keep the grind. Sellers unite, we're one of a kind.
I try to sell my product on Amazon, thought it'd be a breeze. But little did I know I'd be stuck with seller support disease. They never seem to solve my problems, just give me the runaround. I'm tired of waiting on hold. My patience is wearing thin, I'll never be found. Amazon seller support, you suck, you suck, you suck. Can't get no satisfaction. I'm out of luck, out of luck, out of luck. You don't care about my business, just trying to make a buck. Amazon seller support, you suck, you suck, you suck.
This one's for the sellers on the grind, getting left on red, wasting all their time. I hit up support, got an auto reply. Thanks for your patience, man, I wanna cry. Inventory lost, my margins are toast. Reps playing tag like the Casper the Ghost. They pass me around, it's a never-ending game. Nobody takes action, everybody shifts blame. My ASIN's down, I'm out of the race. They say they'll escalate, yo, what a disgrace. Amazon seller support, you're breaking my heart. No answers, no fixes, just tearing me apart. Hours in the queue, stuck in the dark. Amazon seller support, you're missing the mark.
Amazon game plan, that is the key. Seller central dashboard, that's where I be. Analyze the funnel, see what we lack, then we optimize. Sellers know it's a fact. I get it poppin', you know that it's lit. Climbing the rankings, ain't no room to quit. I check the data, they notice the stats. I keep the method, that's how you adapt. Metrics are showing, you know it's our cap. Amazon sellers, it's time to react. I'm about that action, I do this with passion. I got them like, whoa, what is this? Huh, whoa.
I don't know, dude. I think everybody's just buying stuff based on reviews and badges or whatever. They don't even know who we are. These customers don't even know the name of my brand. But they keep clicking add to cart like it's part of the plan. They see that Amazon badge and think it's all grand. But yo, they don't even know the name of my brand.
Click, scroll, build your store. Amazon's waiting, what you waiting for? Brand it loud, make it shine. Steven's here to drop the rhyme. Dials, banners, plug and play. Your storefront's live, let's sell a day. Now listen up, I'm Steven Pope. Amazon guru, I'll help you cope. Step 1, get that trademark stamped. Without brand registry, your Amazon cramped. Head to Seller Central, log in quick. Manage stores tab, yeah, that's the trick. Upload your logo, flex that style. You're about to make Jeff Bezos smile. Where pick a template, marquee or grid. Drop your tiles like a branding whiz. Hero image, big and bold. This store's gonna glitter like digital gold. Scroll, build your store. Amazon's waiting, what you waiting for? Brand it loud, make it shine. Steven's here to drop the rhyme. Blue tiles, banners, plug and play. Your storefront's live, let's sell today. Yo. In the trenches of the Amazon game, trying to survive while it's driving me insane. Nobody warns you, they just claim it's passive income. Nah, it's pain. I'm sitting at a birthday, laughing, chilling, next to a newbie Amazon seller spilling. She's like, Prime so smooth, it's a killer. Then tried to sell, now she's stuck in a thriller. Finding products, yeah, that's the first grind. Scrolling Alibaba, losing my mind. Sample suck, manufacturers decline. I'm like, dang, how's anyone doing this fine? Ship it in, pay for the bubble wrap, but they ship glass bottles in padded crap. Now I got hot sauce leaks, refund stack, customers pissed. Man, I'm under attack. Amazon's a beast, it's a fight, no peace. From SEO to PPC, the hustle don't cease. Think it's passive? Nah, you better increase your tolerance for chaos or face defeat. Trademark wars, brand registries a scam. They banned my brand, now I'm in a jam. Listings yanked, products ranked and tanked. Lost dogs in the catalog, my account shanked. Now let's talk ads, it's a rabbit hole. 1,000 hours deep, man, it's taking my soul. Weekly negations, bulk sheets for control. Excel's my new weapon, but it's taking its toll. SEO's no joke, keywords in the game. All text, A+ content, playing insane. Lifestyle shots, avatars for fame, but the CTR's low, all products look the same. Amazon's a beast, it's a fight, no peace. From SEO to PPC, from SEO to PPC, the hustle don't cease. Think it's passive? Nah, you better increase your tolerance for chaos or face defeat. Let's go to Max School. To Max School. Class is now in session with Professor Pope. They got the S&P cause Professor Pope wrote the recipe, helping Amazon sellers grow sales exponentially. Amazon's a jungle, but we map the strategy. Brand strategist playbook, it's a guide to victory. Troubleshooting catalogs, you know we got the answer key. Boosting all your rankings, turning sales into a legacy. SOB so deep, you'd think we studied at Max School. Every step we follow leads to growth, yeah, it's a golden rule. Stuck on keywords, we'll find the ones that work the best. Using Helium-10, strike distance keywords pass the test. Incremental indexing ensures the listing set to rise. From the back end to the bullets, optimization hits the skies. Brand store creation, yeah, we make it shine and flow. A+ content design makes conversions overflow. Need your images on point, best practices in the plan. All text and photo rules ensure your visuals command. SEO meets PPC, it's balanced, every step aligned. We'll construct the MKLs that drive rankings over time. Budget caps and bid adjustments, no more wasted spending. Segmentation builds campaigns that sellers can defend. Got a hijacker, no problem, we'll file to take them down. Review requests in action, 5-star ratings come around. Flat file updates, market share reports, it's all in reach. Professor Pope wrote the SOP so sellers learn and teach. Meanwhile, my Amazon guys on the case, fixing up my problems at lightning pace. Ticket escalations, Mag's the boss. Even Amazon says we'll take the loss. Seller support don't know what's up. Passing the buck when the issue gets tough. They're the official team, but they can't comply. So they say, reach out to my Amazon guy. They're supposed to be the pros, but they can't decode policies and tools from their own damn road. I'm paying fees, yet they bring me stress. But Mag turns my chaos into pure success. Seller support reps, they throwing shade, but then admit, yo, Mag will get you paid. Third-party agency taking the throne while Amazon fumbles in their own damn zone. Seller support don't know what's up. Passing the buck when the issue gets tough. They're the official team, but they can't comply. So they say, reach out to my Amazon guy. So here's the truth, let's keep it real. Mag's the team with the pro-level skill. Amazon sellers, you know the vibe when support says call Mag. They'll give you peace of mind. Amazon seller support, you can suck my image stack. Sucking is all you're good at anyway. Bezos, hit me up if you want to sell seller support. I'm buying. There's a chase. Peace.
All right, let's talk about all things PPC and how you can scale your business on Amazon. We got Prime Day right around the corner. In fact, it's like a week away. It's crazy. So anyway, my name is Kevin Sanderson from My Amazon Guy. I'm the marketing and partnerships guy here. I've been selling on Amazon for almost 10 years, almost exactly 10 years. It was like early August, late July that I got my very first sale. I remember having the app on my phone. I sent stuff into Amazon's warehouse, and I developed this habit, which many of us have, where we're like, refreshing the app to figure out what do our sales look like. And all of a sudden went from a 0 to a 1, and I've been hooked ever since. So, all right, with that, I just want to make sure everybody can hear me. I know we've got some questions starting to come in. So if you have questions, we've got answers, drop them into the chat or the comment section, depending on where you're at. We'll get to those. Looks like Pa Bariza says the songs are fire. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed those. Joshua says, I just want to say this song is a blippin' banger. I think we can all use our imagination. What Joshua's trying to get across. Joshua says, I can hear you. So thank you. Theo says hello. So hello. All right. So let's do this. For the folks that complimented our songs and said hello here at the beginning. Joshua says, ha, ha, ha. So Joshua, Theo, and Pa Bariza, email podcast@myamazonguy.com. We'll get you a free course valued at $100 just as a thank you for joining us. And Viper 1213 and Leo or Lapamudra, Lapamudra. I think I said that right. All of you as well can get in on that. So just email podcast singular at myamazonguy.com. So just podcast singular at myamazonguy.com. And we will get you a coupon code for a free mag school course valued at $100, which if you went on mag-school.com, it would cost you $100, but we're going to give it to you for free. So, all right. So now let's start getting into some questions. So if you have questions, drop them into the chat regarding PPC. We can go different directions if you'd like. We just theme this around PPC because people like to talk about paid advertising. And I have spent more money on PPC than I've spent on my house, including being able to pay off the mortgage and then some. So spent a lot of paid ads over the years. So anyway, Mark says, hey, Kevin, could you offer some advice for Prime Day deals and PPC? First one coming up next week. So yes, congratulations. Welcome to Prime Day. So a couple things to keep in mind is Prime Day is kind of like a bell curve. So you got a bunch of sales in the beginning, and then like you can imagine a bell curve where it kind of like, on the shoulders, as you might call it, kind of starts to narrow off. So the days leading up, you're not going to have a lot of sales. In fact, you might have slow days leading up, and you might have slow days on the back end. And so you're going to have lots of traffic. So and you're probably going to have high ACOSs going into the days ahead of Prime Day. So there's a couple schools of thought. One, go out with a banger and get as much traffic as possible, because those people, especially if you're offering deals, they might be more likely to come back, especially if you do sponsored display, retargeting those folks, as well as you do some promotions or brand tailored promotions for abandoned carts. So that could be things that could help you. Or you might want to lower your bids before Prime Day, maybe raise them on Prime Day because there's a little more competitiveness. Or if you're not doing a lot of deals and you're not sure if your product is necessarily one that is going to have massive increases on Prime Day, then maybe you don't want to increase your bids, and maybe you actually lower them because you're like, well, I'm not going to get a lot of sales, and being this your first one, so you don't have a lot of history, it's going to be hard to say. And this year is 4 days instead of 2. My gut feeling is it's going to start with a bang and then maybe kind of finish with a little bit of a bang. So instead of, it originally was just 1 day, then they made it 2 days. And then it always seemed like the first day to me was busier than the second day, although I can't say that's always been the case since they've gone to 2. But now that they've gone to 4, so like a lot of people don't have a history on that pattern. That might spread out the window shopping with people just kind of clicking around because there's not as much urgency. It's not like, oh, I better buy this stuff today, or I'm out of luck. So they might be clicking around. And just keep in mind, as people are clicking around with less intention of buying, that is going to decrease your conversion rate, which just expect it's going to happen. And so one of the things you can do in the back end is make sure to do brand tailored promotions after Prime Day and sponsored display retargeting visitors after Prime Day, because they will be less worried about deals. And these are people that have at least expressed interest in your product. So like my wife and I were talking about because my wife has a retainer from when she wore braces as an adult years ago, but she still has the retainer. And our daughter got her braces off a few months ago. And so they both have a retainer. So we're talking about getting like a infrared cleaner thingy. So we're debating waiting until Prime Day, although they decided to go ahead and get it anyway. It's like, well, get a deal. So sometimes people will wait to Prime Day to potentially buy something, and they may or may not. And so, or they're just like kind of window shopping, like, oh, I need one of these things, whether it be an infrared braces, retainer cleaner thingy, or something else. And so they might say, I actually don't need this on Prime Day. There's better deals than something like this, but they find other things that they add to cart or they add to lists they come back for later. And so it's very possible that people will be interested in your product because there's that extra traffic and extra eyeballs on Amazon, but maybe they're more focused on the deals that day and they come back and get later. So unfortunately with Amazon, it's not like they give you an email list of like, hey, here's the people that visited your product. What's the word I'm saying? Here's the people that visited your product, and you could email them and say, oh, by the way, you forgot, come, back to the listing and buy it. You can't do that, but you do have other tools like the brand tailored promotion. And you can also do the sponsored display for your visitors. So retargeting visitors. So those are things I would do on the back end. And, more than anything, if this is your first Prime Day, just take note of it and take everything people tell you as a grain of salt, because everybody's looking at history of 2 days on Prime Day, and some products do better on Prime Day than others. And it's hard to say. My products have never really done very well on Prime Day necessarily, because I sell giftable products. So you need a gift or you don't need a gift. So I usually will get a little bit of a bump, but it's like an above average day, not a home run day. But some people, it's like an out of the park home run and they're not even doing huge discounts. So if it's a type of product where people might buy it, might like have utility, but it's not an urgent thing, like, oh, that'd be a nice to have. Sometimes you do well with those type of products on Prime Day. That's my personal opinion. So, all right, scroll down a little bit. Let's see who else we have here. Mark also asked, if I move a keyword from broad to phrase, should I keep the broad running? Yes. So in the canon of my Amazon guy scripture from the Pope himself, is basically never negate a good keyword. So if you were to download your bulk file report, you're going to see, and you might have already done this before, but for folks who are not familiar, everything in your Amazon ads has a record ID attached to it. So like if you download the bulk files report for it doesn't even matter the time period. You'll just see that like a campaign has a record ID, a ad group has a record ID, the ad, the product you're targeting, that has a record ID. Each keyword has a record ID. So your broad keyword, that has a record ID. So if you are now going to add a phrase match keyword, that's going to have a new record ID, whether that's in the same campaign or a new one. At MAG, we would generally suggest you create a new campaign or move it into another campaign with other phrases, other phrase matches, I should say. So that's the thing to keep in mind is that broad might actually do better than the phrase, even for that exact phrase. Now, why? No one knows. Just the algorithm sometimes will pick one versus the other, and the one that they're picking might just happen to be your broad version. And so also, if you think about it, like you're going to get, if it's trying to think of, lavalier microphone that I'm not wearing right now, but I have to use. So the algorithm might have lavalier microphone is your phrase match, but black lavalier microphone or lavalier microphone set of two might show up broad. And so if you turn off lavalier microphone in broad because you have it now in phrase or exact, you're giving up the opportunity for longer tail keywords that are actually more specific and have more intent for your product. And so you would still want to negate things that aren't working, but you don't want to turn off the broad because you're limiting your opportunity for other keywords. And then there's also the fact that the algorithm might just be favoring that particular record ID for whatever reason. And no one totally knows why. Is it the history on the, maybe? Who knows? The algorithm sometimes will just favor one versus the other. And sometimes it is the phrase that you promoted to, but don't turn off the broad because you never know what's going to work. All right. So Pubariza says, thank you. Star Flash says, Mag, intro music is lit. Well, I'm glad everybody's liking the intro music today. So that's always fun stuff. So, all right. So folks, get in your questions. We've got more and more questions piling in here. I'm going to do my best to get to as many of them as possible. The earlier you ask your question, the more likely I will be able to get to it. So I do have a hard stop here at 1:00 Eastern time at the top of the hour. So it's kind of like, if you remember being in school, the teacher says, does anyone have any questions? And everybody kind of stares at each other. Then all of a sudden one person asks a question. Then all of a sudden everyone has a question. So chances are at the end, more people will ask questions. That generally tends to be how it is, at least in the second half of this. So if you get in sooner, you're more likely to get your question answered. I want to try to answer as many questions as possible. And let's just say Mark Sen for being the first person to ask a question. You can also email podcast@myamazonguy.com and I'll hook you up with a free Mag School course valued at $100. So, all right, I'll get to questions here in just a moment. All right, let's go down here. Viper says, what is your recommended PPC strategy for, recommended PPC strategy for PPC for Prime Day? All right, kind of what I just said at the last one, which you might have heard me give that answer. But basically, if you have history, think back to, what was it like on Prime Day? If you don't have history, it's not a bad idea. And this is me saying something that I don't eat my own dog food on, but I probably should do. And that is on major days like Prime Day, Black Friday, whatever your peak time periods are, save reports for those days so you can take a look at in the past. You can compare historic. So I would suggest saving your reports, or maybe I should tell my assistant to save the reports for the days of Prime Day so we can take a look at and see how did we actually do. So that would be my suggestion. All right. So look and see what you did in the past. That's kind of above and beyond what I mentioned to the last person, but just keep in mind, Prime Day can be hit or miss depending on your type of product. Sometimes it's better to go aggressive into it if you don't have a lot of history, just so you can kind of see, because you don't feel like you left anything out on the table. And then, if it didn't go as well as you'd hoped, then that is a chalk one of that up to a learning experience. And if it's goes really well, then you're like, okay, I didn't leave anything on the table. So things to keep in mind, but don't spend money that you would have spent on, like inventory, like, oh, I can't buy inventory because I risked it all on PPC. Don't do that either, though. Just make sure you're set up for success, ongoing success after Prime Day. Theo says, I have a campaign with a 39% ROAS and I want to increase the ad strategy. Okay. So I want to make sure I understand this. Is this a 39% ROAS or a 39% ACOS? So a 39% ROAS, like you put $1 in, you get $1.39 back. That would be basically ACOS and ROAS are the inverse of one another. So you just take 1 divided by ACOS and you get ROAS. 1 divided by ROAS, you get ACOS. So if you have a ROAS of 4, 1 divided by 4 is 25%. So your ACOS would be 25%. If you had a 33% ACOS, 1 divided by 0.33 for 33%, that would be an ROAS of basically 3. So if you have a 39% ROAS, do you mean ACOS and you're wanting to increase the ad strategy based on what you're saying there? If you want to increase your ad spend, you must be happy with it, which you would not be happy with a 0.39 ROAS. So as far as the how to increase the spend, just start increasing. First off, are you getting to a point of not hitting your budget, or are you hitting your budget? So if you're hitting your budget, then increase your budget. And if you're happy with the 39% ACOS, which is, definitely a decent ACOS, especially if you're getting organic traffic on top of that, and you want to increase the spend, there's a few different ways you can do it. One, you could look at it as, okay, if I am hitting my budget, then budget is your bottleneck right now. So you can increase your budgets and then you spend more. Sometimes you increase your budget, but nothing really happens because there's just only so many impressions and Amazon's only giving you X share of those impressions, whatever the case is. So then you have to look at it. Do I have now more of a issue with my bids? And so, like, for example, if your bid is $1.50 and your cost per click is $1.49 or $1.50, you're pretty much right at that. So there's probably the ability to increase your bid. So that way you would show up more. So that would be something you might want to look at, especially on keywords that are performing well. Then if you don't necessarily have specific keywords that you could really increase, or like, let's say you're bidding $1.50 and your cost per click is 87 cents, assuming you're doing down only strategy, then you probably want to look at it as, in that case, increasing your bid isn't really going to do anything for you because you might already be the top person. You might have the top bid already and Amazon thinks it's relevant. So they're showing to you at a relatively low cost per click. So increasing your bid isn't necessarily going to do anything for you. So what you now want to start looking at is maybe adding other keywords. And there's a couple different ways you could do that. One, you could look at like helium-10 and Cerebro. Are there any other keywords that your competitors are ranking for that you could go after? Are there longer tail keywords that you could go after? So, if you're going after lavalier microphone, lavalier microphone set of 2, black lavalier microphone set of 2, start getting like super specific. Then maybe it's going into other things. So maybe microphone for Instagram Reels. I don't know if that's one that they actually would let you go after because it's got the word Instagram in it, but microphone for podcasting, microphone for whatever. Now that might not do as well as black lavalier microphone set of 2 because it's so specific. And whereas microphone for podcasts might be like a big, Rode mic type thing. So just things to keep in mind is that you either need to increase your budget, you need to increase your bids, or you need to find new keywords and new targets to go after, either kind of adjacent keywords or longer tail keywords, or probably both. So if you're happy with where you're at, then you're in a good spot. All right. Mohammed says Prime Day strategy. So let me know if you have a specific question about Prime Day strategy, because probably since you asked this question, I've answered similar type question a couple times, but we'd be more than happy to answer more about specific Prime Day strategies. Budget regarding Prime Day. So I guess this would be more specific, which is good. So when it comes to budget on Prime Day, you might as well increase it. See how it goes, because, you don't want to run out of budget. Now, if you're, let's say your budget is $30 a day on a campaign and you're currently spending $12 a day, maybe increasing your budget for Prime Day might help you. Maybe it won't. Maybe you'll still spend $28 a day on Prime Day. So it depends. Prime Day it's definitely a blip. It could be an increase, especially if you have, discounts and stuff like that. It could really help you, but Prime Day isn't always as big of a thing as sometimes people make it out to be. It's definitely something you want to take advantage of. But I would say, at least for me historically, Black Friday, Cyber Monday are really more the second or third weekend in December is really my Super Bowl. It's what everyone gets excited about Prime Day for. So it depends on the seasonality and type of product. All right. So how we question. I don't fully understand what that question is. So how can we do what? Oh, how can you ask a question? Just like you did. If you're asking, how do you ask a question? Just like you did here, just drop it into the comment section. All right. So other people asking strategy for Prime Day, which these are all probably asked before I answer them before. So if you have a specific question regarding Prime Day, let me know. It's probably Prime Day is a very timely topic now that we're 1 week away. So hopefully I've given a lot of good nuggets, which if you just joined us, you can always go back and watch the replay more towards the beginning. I was answering some Prime Day related questions. Happy to answer more if there's something specific. What's the best tool to manage PPC? Any AI automation tools that actually work well? So my Amazon guy, we work with bulk files. We have some macros that we use, but for the most part, it's our folks are using not AI, not automation tools. We are using bulk files, and bulk files just because it's easier than going into each individual campaign. You can click into the campaign, and then you click into the ad group, and then you click into the targeting to see like what your targets are to, work on individual keywords. We just find you can do so much better at scale using bulk files. There's a lot out there. Some are good, some are better. If you want to get into one, I would ask in a forum that's not associated with software tools, what people recommend, and get a sense. I've got respect for a lot of people that work at some of these software tool companies that are selling AI automation, and they probably could give very good case studies of how their particular strategies and how they do things work well. And kudos to them for that. It's just, we here at MAG use bulk files. In my own personal business, I use bulk files. So I would say, unless you have a enormous catalog, an enormous number of campaigns, I would avoid using PPC automation tools. Now, I have probably 400 or 500 active SKUs. I'm constantly retiring SKUs that aren't doing as well as they used to. And so I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of active campaigns. And I use bulk files. And so I use a lot of sorting features, a lot of filtering. And I think it works well for me, and it tends to work well for a lot of our clients at MAG that are similar catalog size to what I have. So if you do decide to get an AI automation tool, find out how it works. I don't want to name some companies. Some companies will work very well with whatever you're already doing. Others, you have to change your entire strategy and how you do things to match their tool. Like some only work with single keyword campaigns. And so if that's the case for you and you want to do that, great. But you're going to be kind of locked into their software because, all their if-thens that they've programmed into the system are all based on that. And so if you switch to another software tool down the road, they may or may not be able to work with that. And also keep in mind that if you go off the software tool is this something you can manage on your own the way they've now refigured your account? So make sure just ask lots of good questions on the front end. Everyone's going to want to try to get you excited about their tool. And a lot of them are good. It's just, I don't personally use one, so I can't say use this tool. Just my 10 cents there. All right. So why so cute? Why such a cute name there? How do you segment campaigns by intent using keyword match types and placement modifiers, especially when trying to scale without tanking ACoS post Prime Day? Okay. So that's a good question. So going back to, I just keep picking up, this is a box on my desk. So if you're selling lavalier microphones, maybe, the set of two, the black, those kind of long tail ones that kind of group together, those might be in a campaign. We at MAG recommend you do no more than about 5 or so in a keywords per campaign, just to make it easier to manage budget and things of that nature. And then, if you had ones that I gave the example is for podcasting or for vertical videos or whatever the keyword tools are telling you, you could probably tell that certain ones have certain intents. Now, does it have to be perfect? No. But if anything, it probably helps you at least manage it. If you're like, okay, all the podcasting microphone related ones are over here. All the set of 2 microphones are over here, or for iPhone are over here. And so, those related keywords are all together. So you can see at a glance if you just make sure you have good naming structure, I think is more important. That includes at least whether you use the SKU or the ASIN. I personally use the ASIN in the name of the campaign dash, whatever the quick, easy way to tell what product that is. And then, maybe put in something about, this is auto, this is broad, this is phrase. And then maybe, what you have dash, whatever the match types, and then, the intent. So at the end of the day, do your best. Placement modifiers, I don't worry about placement modifiers as much. That might be a controversial statement. I think some people try too hard to always be, top of search placement, which sometimes works for some keywords. If you have, just keep in mind that the modifiers are at the campaign level. So I would not restructure your campaigns that are already working just to have better positioning of modifiers or better control on modifiers. I would suggest you don't do that. Keep it as it is. And then, you talk about scaling post Prime Day, you should be fine. So whatever you have should be evergreen. And then you just update bids and budgets along the way. And then you make minor changes. So the way I like to look at it is PPC is kind of like driving down a road. You're not just holding onto the steering wheel like this, like clenched fist, not moving at all. You're making small little changes. Every now and then you're coming to a curve. So you got to turn the wheel a little more. You got to turn a little more. Sometimes you got to swerve, but you're not constantly swerving all over the place on the road. So you want to look at it as like, what is the direction I'm going? And what are those minor corrections I'm making along the way? And maybe I make some bigger corrections, like I got to change lanes, or I've got to, a big turn coming up here, or, I have to swerve because there's stuff in the middle of the road that I got to get out of the way out of. But you don't want to be constantly swerving. Otherwise, you're going to end up in a ditch. So hopefully that analogy made sense. All right. So next up, as a newbie to PPC, what are the metrics I must check daily, weekly, and monthly? So if you're new to PPC, all of this depends on how much you're spending. So there's a lot of it depends here. There's a certain point of data sufficiency. Now, I've run a lot of PPC summits, and there's a lot of people out there saying, check your PPC daily, you should always be doing, weekly. But if you're spending $10 a day on, you got 2 campaigns spending $10 a day, and, you're not getting that many clicks, you don't necessarily need to check it daily. You might not even need to check it weekly, maybe every other week. You should probably at least pop in a couple times a week just to see, make sure nothing is like going awry, especially if you're new. But one of the dangers is when you're new is that sometimes there's just slow days. Sometimes there's really good days. Sometimes the reporting is delayed by hours for no reason. No one knows. So don't get too wrapped up in like, oh my God, it was good today. Oh, and don't get too wrapped up in the roller coaster of it. You want to have data sufficiency to make good decisions and not just like, oh my gosh, it's slow today. I need to increase everything. Oh my gosh, I'm spending too much money. Let's decrease all the bids. And so just, you want to have a good amount of data to look at. And so if you have a huge account, like, some accounts might be spending this Prime Day thousands on a single keyword in one day. They will probably be looking at it hourly, and that might make sense. But if you're, if after 2 weeks, some of your keywords are getting 10 clicks, then maybe now it's time to take a look at things. But like, I don't know that you necessarily need to go daily. And then monthly, one of the things I like to do is every now and then, let's say I'm checking my campaigns every 2-3 weeks. That generally tends to work for me, but I have a pretty mature account and I've got a lot of history on it. And so I kind of know how things are working. You might want to go maybe do a little more often than that in the beginning, but I will generally look at, like, let's say, since I last checked my PPC. So if it was 2 weeks ago, I use a bulk file from the last 2 weeks. If it was 3 weeks ago, from the last 3 weeks, whatever it is. And then occasionally I will take it all the way back to, like, let's say on bulk files, you can go, let's just call it 60 days. You can go back 60 days. And then I will just check to make sure, do I have any onesie twosies that are, things that, when I say onesie twosies, like normally in a 2-3 week span of time, you got some keywords that literally have 1 click, 2 clicks. Whereas if it's on a longer time horizon, like 2 months, you might show up more like, okay, that actually did well, or that one has gotten 20 clicks and no sales. So there's always possibility that you have, keywords that just aren't on your radar to do anything about, and you want to look at a longer time horizon. Now, this is another thing everybody can do, and this is a little hack I like to do. Basically, this time of year on, you can do it earlier in the year too. But like, if you think about it, if you go to the targeting tab, I believe the targeting tab is also, you can only look back 60 days, even if it's 90. Either way, it's a limited time period. Or you can look at lifetime, but you can also look at year to date. And so year to date, if you've been advertising since at least January 1st, will give you, as of today, 6 months of data. So now you can filter for 0 sales and more than, whatever number of clicks. A lot of people like to use the thought process of whatever your conversion rate should be for a product. If it's, let's say 20% conversion rate, which is actually kind of high, but just for math, that's 5 clicks to get a sale. 10% conversion rate is 10 clicks to get a sale. 1 divided by whatever that percentage is. They'll give you a number of clicks to get a sale. Whatever double that number of clicks is to get a sale, if you haven't made a sale yet, it might not be worth keeping. So especially like if you're talking about something that's not going to do great necessarily, and it's been year to date and it's gotten 20 clicks and no sales, and you have a 10% conversion rate, maybe it's time to just turn that one off. So that's just going into the targeting tab in the campaign manager and taking a look at that. And that's something you can do every now and then. And, that doesn't do as well if you're looking at year to date and it's January 3rd. You could also look at lifetime, but if you're like me and you've been advertising since 2016, selling since 2015, it's going to be all over the place. Maybe it was that, maybe some keywords were doing great in 2018, 2019, but they're not doing as well today. So that's why I like to look at year to date. All right. Mark says, thanks for the detailed response. My pleasure. Viper 1213 says, what percentage should I target for brand promotions after Prime Day? whatever you're comfortable with. So you're probably talking about when you said percentage, like percentage off. So think of it from two standpoints. What are you comfortable with and what's enough to be attractive? So, oftentimes these things are very stackable. So if you're running other discounts, just keep that in mind. They can also have an effect on your eligibility to run coupons. Keep that one in mind too. So if you do these big discounts after Prime Day, you might not be eligible for coupons without the brand tailored promotion, because now your average of what you've been selling that product for is lower. But still, this could be worthwhile. So, if you have, let's say your break-even ACoS is 40%, so you factored in like what my selling price is minus my cost of goods sold minus what the my fees are, and then you have 35, 40%, whatever left over. You don't want to give away all that. Maybe you do a 15% or a 20% discount. For most people, 20% discount is pretty big. But just keep in mind, some people might be seeing this and, they might be running ad. They could still be attributed to an ad click that they made previously. So it's definitely worth trying out. But I wouldn't get too aggressive on it unless you're just trying to spike sales. If you're trying to spike sales and you're like, you know what, I can spike sales. Or if you have, let's say, a subscribe and savable product, like you're selling supplements or something that, they could come back and buy it, once a month, once every 2 months, once every 3 months, whatever. And so your long-term value of the customer is worth losing money on that first sale, then yeah, maybe go a little more aggressive. But like a lot of things you'll find in business, the answer is it depends. All right. So what is a top search term infrared cleaner thingy? Oh, that's a good question. So we're probably referring to earlier, I was talking about the infrared thing that my my wife and daughter had bought for their braces. So, or for not their braces, but for the retainer. They both had wearing braces. I wore braces more years ago than I care to admit. And I wish they had said, like, always make sure you wear your retainer because, there's some movement has happened over the years, especially in the bottom teeth. Anyway, total side note. But as far as what keyword for the infrared thingy, let's take a look just for fun. All right, so let me share my screen. All right. Share screen, entire screen. All right, so we're going to take a look together. All right, so you might see some of our purchasing habits here in my household. As you can see, my son likes Pokemon. All right, so, and we're buying back to school stuff, oddly enough. So they're targeting us for that. All right, so let's see. Let's look at infrared retainer cleaner. So infrared retainer cleaner. And what would it look like if we got rid of the infrared part? Oh, wait. Let's see what shows up. So infrared cleaner tablets, machine would probably make sense. And retainer cleaner case probably makes sense. Let's see if those are infrared. Yep, those tend to look very infrared. So part of it is you want to take a look and see, like, does the keyword you're going for, what is the customer going to see? Because at the end of the day, this is one of the top things you can do. So even if, I know this question is probably like, what is a keyword that's related to the infrared cleaner thingy, which I wasn't even sure myself. Sometimes you just play around and just start looking. And I think one of the best tools that you have out there that's free is suggested search. So, what is Amazon suggesting to the customer, which they're putting a lot of stock into that because they know, like, okay, this might help narrow it down more. Whereas retainer cleaner tablets, that probably wouldn't work well for the infrared thingy. Although somebody is still showing up on page 1 and it looks like it's organic. So it's, you never know. Now, they might be less likely to show. Okay, never mind. They're sponsored. sponsored. So yeah, it looks like a lot of these are still doing the infrared thingy. Even though it's definitely tablets is what they're going after, or is the what the customer search is. But at the end of the day, they're trying to clean their thingy, their retainer thingy, with another type of thingy, to use, technical language there. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, now let's take a look at Lapamudra says, biggest problem, people use them back and ask for refund. Oh, that's going to happen. So in business, it doesn't matter if you're selling digital products, physical products, that's always going to be a frustration. Now, a couple of things you could do: take a look at voice of the customer. Take a look at voice of the customer. Take a look at the returns, the comments people have made, as well as, your reviews. That's going to clue you into, are there things that are just, people are people. If there was a famous line in the movie Clerks from the 90s, Jay and Silent Bob, some people know what I'm talking about. Some people probably don't. But one of the famous lines was, this job would be great if it wasn't for the customers. Well, it was like working as a clerk at like a gas station or something, a convenience store, I think. But anyway, sometimes selling on Amazon would be great if it wasn't for the customers. But at the end of the day, the customers are the ones buying stuff from us. We need them. But every now and then, people they're going to refund it. And there's not an explainable reason. There's a little bit of abuse. Amazon's got a easy policy. But that policy that makes it very easy to return things also attracts customers and probably gets you additional sales that you wouldn't have if Amazon didn't offer that. But you want to also look within your control, what can you fix? And so maybe there's things people are like, things are constantly breaking. So maybe you do something differently with your packaging or how you ship it to Amazon. And so there are going to be things that you just got to deal with. It is what it is. And then other things that are going to be within your control that you can fix. All right. So is day parting at Amazon a good idea, or on Prime Day a good idea? I mean, to increase the bid or budget of campaign and hours where we have higher sales volume. I would say maybe, but like, even now with at the end of the day, like, we don't even know, are people going to wake up early and like the first Prime Day, which I don't think they really will, but I wouldn't do anything different with your day parting, is my personal opinion, because you don't know like when are the shoppers going to be there. And even if you have great history from last year, it's now 4 days. And so anytime you have limited windows and you extend that limited window, sometimes all you're just doing is just extending out the additional sales. Amazon probably has enough data to justify doing 4 days instead of 2, because they think they're going to overall, macro wise, do better. But as far as you individually, like, I don't know that I would make personally a lot of day parting decisions. Maybe I'm wrong. But sometimes it's better just make sure you have enough budget. Now, if you consistently never make sales, during a certain time period, like, early in the morning before 9 o'clock, then maybe day parting makes sense for you. If, you're like, I just want to kind of guess, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it. That's my personal thought. Parag says, what strategies to use for giftable products? Great question. So, and I can speak to giftable products. Some of it depends on, is the giftable product for an occasion? Like, is it for baptism? So whenever people do baptism, or I don't know why I'm going on these like Catholic references. I grew up Catholic, so maybe that's why I'm thinking of these. First communion. First communion oftentimes is in the spring. So if you sell a product that's very, has a big spike when, kids have their first communion in the spring, then, you would look at what your seasonality is. If it is, a giftable product that is giftable around Q4, which most giftable products are, then you know what? You'd look at this. And so, or what I'm about to say, or if it's, very Mother's Day-ish or very Valentine's Day-ish, it depends on which occasions it makes sense to. So is it like, something people do, like First Communion? I don't know why I keep coming back to that one. Or is it like an evergreen thing? Like if it's something that like makes sense to birthdays, if it makes sense to birthdays, people are turning 30, 40, 50 throughout the year. Like it's fairly evergreen, but people are buying Christmas ornaments with their friend's name on it only during a select time period. So hopefully that makes sense. So during your peak times for that giftable product, you want to, make sure you have enough budget, increase your bids. Cause I have some products that do 10X during the holiday season. They do the rest of the year. In fact, a lot of my products that are giftable might do more during Black Friday to Christmas Eve than they do the rest of the year. So you just got to look at when is your peak time and then try to, look at what other keywords you can go for that might be a little aggressive. So example, gifts for him, gifts for mom. If it makes sense, take a look, at those keywords and see if your product makes sense to that. Or is it a specific kind of gift for mom, or gift for her, gift for him. So take a look at those. And if it's, most of the people are buying them for hims, don't go after her keywords. Sometimes some products just lend themselves. Like, I know there's always gonna be exceptions, but like if you sell a pocket knife, like it comes in like a nice box and people use it as a gift, chances are that's going to be a him product. There probably will be lots of hers that it is bought for as a gift, but from a macro standpoint, if it's 90-10, go after the 90%. So that would be my strategy, or vice versa. So just keep that in mind. But your keywords should be very targeted to what the product is, and then maybe audience type of keywords. And then there's also some that I don't think work as well as I think they used to, like gifts under $20. That's a tougher one. I used to do well with those type of keywords around the holidays, like 16, 17, 18. I don't even touch those anymore because it's so all over the place. But I could have like gifts under 10 and sell a product that was $20 and do well at it. I don't know that I've spent any time trying to in the last few years, but that's another one you could do is gifts under, if it makes sense. And just take a look at, some of these giftable keywords and see what other things are showing up, kind of like I was showing before. What is the customer's experience? Spend some time there. All right. Akash Kumar says, what percentage of ACOS can we drop with day parting? How can I achieve 10% tacos? What strategy should I use? So 10% tacos is good, very good. Is it possible? Yes. Now, one of the things to keep in mind is, depends on what your tacos is now. If you have a 15% tacos, maybe getting to a 10% tacos is good. If you have a 25% tacos and you're trying to get to 10% tacos using just day parting, I don't think you're going to get there. It depends, unless you just have a ton of people who are just clicking around from 11 p.m. at night to 4 in the morning. Then maybe you make it so you don't show up as much during that time period. That might be a suggestion. But one of the things to keep in mind is a 10% tacos might be the expense of overall sales. And so that could be worthwhile. But what you got to look at is total sales minus total cost. So Amazon fees, cost of goods sold, whatever. And then how much money do you have left over? Then do the same thing with scenario B, and maybe at a 20% tacos, you sell more product and maybe you make less per unit sold, but you make more money because you made it up in more units. Whereas 10% tacos might be aggressive. It just depends how cheap, how close are you to, if you're at a 12% tacos, going after 10% tacos is very reasonable goal. If you're currently at a 35% tacos, then I would say stair step it. Don't try to get all overnight, because you're going to risk other sales which could backfire and hurt your organic ranking that you might be getting for some keywords as well. So I would be very cautious about that. So just look at where are you now and what steps can you take? And if 10% tacos is just out of thin air of like as a goal, or because you heard somebody talk about it as achievable, it might be. It's harder to do nowadays unless you have tons of organic rank that isn't necessarily associated to a keywords that you're advertising. So my 2 cents. All right. Lopamudras is very nice. I'm glad. Sorry, left. Welcome back. Theo says, I'm only spending $20 a day, but do I have to do it incrementally or can I do it quickly? I don't remember what the context of the original question was. Oh, I have a campaign with 39% ROAS and I want to increase the bid strategy, which I think this was ACOS, not ROAS. All right, back to the question. Spending $20 a day, I want to do it incrementally, do it quickly. I mean, here's the thing. Facebook or Google, especially Google Performance Max, which is like their version of automatic or auto keywords or auto targeting, I should say. If you say my budget's $20 and you say my budget's now $100, they will find ways to spend it. Amazon, if it's search based and it's $20 right now and you say my budget's now $100, you might not spend the other $80. It might not be a thing. So just keep that in mind. Like it might be almost impossible to go too high too quickly. Like they might not even let you, even if the impressions are available, you might not show up more. So you want to also look at bids. So bids is more of the lever to pull, but we talked about before, you had different things you could go after. So if you're spending $20 a day and your budget is $20 a day, then budget is your increase, and maybe increase it a little bit, like 20% a day until you get to your target. But you could theoretically raise it to $100 a day. Just be ready. You might actually spend that, but chances are you probably won't. But just don't put in a budget that you're not comfortable spending, would be my 2 cents. And if you're running out of budget at like 10 in the morning, then you're indicating you need to really increase your budget. If you're running out of budget at 9 o'clock at night, you don't have to increase that much. So hopefully that helped with some things to think about when you're thinking about increasing your budget. All right. Mohammed Abdullah says, if I'm day parting rule implement on Prime Day strategy, I can use this and type. Yeah. So my thought, as I mentioned to someone else earlier, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on day parting for Prime Day unless you have a lot of history on what it's going to be. Because one, you could be shooting yourself in the foot based on when people might be buying. And the history of the 4-day Prime Day is new versus the 2-day Prime Day. So customers are going to be acting differently than they would act, normally. So just some things to keep in mind there. All right. Parag says, should the regularly running PPC ads for the product that are not part of Prime Day deals be turned off? Oh, no, I'd keep them on. Prime Day deal turned off on Prime Days because people mostly be clicking around to find deals. I'd say, if anything, if you're concerned about that, which is a valid concern, just decrease your bids. One simple thing you could do, take your bulk file, download it. If you're comfortable with formulas in Excel, you could first save the copy of what it is today for your bulk file, then do an update for all of your bids, all your keywords that have bids, all your ad groups that have bids, and decrease it by 10%. So, whatever your bid is times 0.9, or if you're decreasing by 15%, your bid times 0.15. So those would be things I would think about. And then you could upload that. So now you're, decreasing your bids by 10, 15, 20%. And then when it comes time to increase them, you just put the other bulk file back in, and now you have it to what it used to be. Make sure you're comfortable with bulk files and how they work before you try that. But that would be my suggestion of one thing you could do to lower your bids going into the window shopping period of Prime Day. All right. Theo, the Pope, I love it. Oh, yeah, I was talking about the canon of my Amazon guy scripture according to the Pope, Stephen Pope, that is. Talking earlier about he has some Popeisms, which are very good, which actually, I should find a link. Actually, tomorrow, if you're on our email list, we're going to send an email out. Or no, it won't be tomorrow. It'll be on Thursday. Keep an eye out in your email, and you can get my Amazon guys best 300 tips, a PDF that you can download for free, which I'm going to tease that right now. All right. Joshua Johnson says, I sell fertilizer. Can I use cannabis related keywords in my ads? I'm almost positive the answer is no. Amazon is not favorable to cannabis. I'm just going to look real quick online to see. Yes. So, well, I shouldn't say yes. All right. So here's one easy way to answer that question. So I just searched for cannabis. And you have cannabis oils, whatever. I don't see any sponsored. That might be a no-fly keyword for sponsored products. So you have fertilizer. I don't know if there's euphemisms that you could use that people might understand, but my gut feeling is you probably can't. If these are fertilizers and you're trying to sell it to people who are growing, inside, then maybe. Oh, one good company you could look at. So I don't grow that kind of stuff, but I do have a fan, like an exhaust fan, that is marketed for that purpose. What I use it for is I have a laser engraving machine, and there's a lot of there's like little like metal particles and like smoke and stuff that'll come depending on what you're engraving. And so people use that brand of fan in the laser engraving community. So I would suggest look at, what is the name of that fan? Fans for growing. I forget the name of the brand. I'm drawing a blank. But anyway, look at other products that people are using in that industry, if that's what you're going after, and see, do they have any keywords? Like put them into like Cerebro or something like that. And are they showing up for anything? So that might give you a clue on what keywords you might get away with doing for ads. Hopefully that helped. All right. Sajad says, my product is in high demand and very high competition. I tried the high search volume keywords, mid volume, and misspell, but I'm still getting sales, and my ACOS is 300%. Oof. How do I compete? So a couple of things to keep in mind: high demand, high competition. So usually you're talking about oftentimes keywords that are very competitive, and also like if you have, depends on how many reviews you have. If you have 20 reviews, and people at the top of search have 10,000 reviews, you have a big road to hoe, so to speak, to be competitive. So I would say focus on the keywords where you're actually getting sales, and getting sales remotely profitably, even if it's 70% or less, which is not going to be profitable, but you know what I mean? And then maybe have really low bids in some of those other keywords. And then I would also maybe just take a campaign, an auto campaign, and run it at like 10 cents, 25 cents, something like that, something really low, and just see, can you get any sales? You're not going to get a lot of sales, but the sales you do get might be profitable. They might also tell you what keywords you show up for. So, maybe somebody stumbled on page 5 and you happen to be there, or they clicked way through a carousel of, products. And then they eventually see yours and they buy. So you might have some opportunities at low, but those are going to be low volume. So low cost keywords and low cost placements you might try going after as well. Would be things I would do, and then just try to continue to, how can you improve your product? How can you improve your listing? For everyone watching, you can go to myamazonguy.com/ASIN, ASIN, and our team will do a free review of your product, meaning like they actually will say, okay, here's some things you could change and update. Because there's probably things you could do with your listing to convert more. But I would also focus as much as you can on the longer tail keywords, not the super high volume ones. Oftentimes those are not the best to go after when you're, especially if you're relatively new. All right. Theo says, excellent answer. Thank you so much. Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to help. I think we've got time for one more. Are there templates available to create bulk files? Oh, yeah. The easiest thing to do is just download the bulk file template from Amazon, and like you just make your changes on there. So I think it's column B. You could just, a little drop down for that row, just make it updates, and then it'll even highlight in blue what you can change. And then one thing I do is sometimes I will run formulas in I forget what column. Let's say it ends in column A, B. So in column AC, I had a formula, maybe like revenue per click times like my desired A cost or something like that. Just more as like kind of a gauge of like how much could I spend theoretically on this keyword. And then if you do any formulas, just make sure you delete those columns before you upload it back again. But that would be my suggestion. All right. All right. Joshua says, thank you for the guidance. Mark says, is it against TOS to put Prime Day deal in my title? I would say it is. You don't want to put anything like Prime Day deal or, Christmas you can sometimes get away with. You can say, if it makes sense, gift for, I probably shouldn't say that. There's times you can get away with it. A lot of times they won't let you. Generally speaking, don't try to keyword stuff with event-based keywords. I'll just say that as a general rule, and you'll keep yourself safe. There are some ways to work around some of those, but they tend to be more specific to certain types of products, certain types of categories where you get away with it. But sometimes, people just add the word gift and their entire, or deal, and the whole thing gets, their listing suppressed. So I would be very cautious about putting anything like that. So, all right. I know I didn't get to everybody's questions, but we will do another one like this here again in the near future. I'm Kevin from My Amazon Guy. Thank you for joining us. And with that, everybody take care and happy Prime Day.